You don't usually think of comedy specials as having an arc, but Wong's has been notable. In Baby Cobra, she was hustling to trap her Harvard-educated boyfriend into marriage. Hard Knock Wife found her married, but without the perks she was hoping for. In Don Wong, she's the undisputed alpha, bored of married life, fantasizing about cheating on her husband with Michael B. Jordan or Keanu Reeves. Or both. The Single Lady, the fourth in the Wong saga, finds her divorced, single, and free for the first time since her career exploded. It's a full circle moment, for better and for worse. The special follows Wong in the 2 years following her divorce, where she is looking to get dicked down, coming out of her marriage with fresh out of prison energy. Knowing Wong's previous track record, I was expecting something truly debauched. She no longer has to keep the trust of her husband, she is free to say whatever she wants. I thought this would be a raunchy tell-all, but instead it comes off as a fairly vulgar tell-some? You can see this from the get-go, there is a notable shift in aesthetic. Special Lady looks like a bougie meditation retreat. Wong is wearing a flowing white dress with her hair down and clear framed glasses. There is the aura of a Disney princess, especially compared to Don Wong, where she had the rebellious energy of a bratty mean girl. I wish Wong mixed up how her specials were filmed. She is for the fourth time in a row choosing Netflix defaults, raised front-facing stage, same camera angles, same cringy audience cutaways. It'd be nice if her newfound freedom would be reflected cinematically, but it is what it is. If there were a word to describe Single Lady, restraint. Off the bat, Wong's performance doesn't have the rip your balls off intensity of previous specials. One of her trademarks is explosive physicality, using the elasticity of her face to create cartoonish, grotesque visual imagery, like when she slides through the elevator doors of an imagined anus like Jack Nicholson in The Shining. Oh yeah, I'm coming to get you. There has always been a recklessness to her act-outs, like she truly doesn't care how she comes across. Don Wong got a mixed response, but in physicality, she had never been better. She walked around with this stiff action figure strut. She'd stare down the audience after the filthiest bits with the comical head tilt of a predatory bird. In one bit, she acts out giving her husband a blowjob. It mercilessly reverses the male gaze, combining the gross-out honesty of Joan Rivers with the physical commitment of Brian Regan.
He looking down at you, you looking up at him, and you see him from this very unflattering angle where he got that Jabba the Hutt double chin, you know?
It is ruthlessly funny. Watching her unleash her marital rage like a repressed sexual demon was exhilarating. Single Lady has a touch more Jane Austen. The pinky finger is raised. She still detours into the blue, but without the same animalistic vigor. A bit about kissing after blowjobs relies more on the verbal than the physical.
I just sucked your dick. My knees have those puffy red circles on them. My top knot has migrated to the side of my head.
Her previous specials felt like watching a woman release all the dirty, disgusting thoughts she had bottled up inside her, like she had raised a bag of wine to the sky and slashed it open with a steak knife. In Single Lady, you feel things have been a little more curated. She refers to her new boyfriend under a pseudonym, she avoids talking about her divorce, other than to say her and her husband are best friends. There certainly would have been a lot of knotty feelings about leaving her ex-husband that could have delved into her frame of mind, but they're left untouched. Obviously, it's good to have boundaries, but in a career where it felt like Wong was telling us everything, it's a little disappointing to see her holding back. The material we do get, however, is cutting and sharply written. Whether it's describing her fourth day period as watery salsa, or an older lover collapsing after ejaculating, like removing the wrong block from a Jenga tower, Wong is amazing at capturing graphic situations with a simple simile. She also continues a run of references to Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I will never not enjoy. This time about how sexy she finds Uncle Iroh, Prince Zuko, and Appa. Yummy. The craft in some of her material is exquisite. In one bit, Wong describes a hypothetical toy boy she would buy a condo for. The premise of an older woman with a younger man isn't new, but Wong, with scalpel precision, carves all the meat off the comedy bone.
You better be there, because you cannot be both poor and busy. Why don't we just add ugly and anger management issues while we're at it? And I better not catch you subletting that second bedroom.
It's like a play on a pullback and reveal. With each new sentence, we learn a little more about this desperate imaginary hunk. I especially loved the pithy contradiction of being poor and busy. The final image you get is of some broke version of Kronk who has to sell weed on the side to make ends meet.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
Wong remains one of the best users of repetition in comedy, expertly regenerating the same idea into successive punchlines.
And then he was looking at me the entire time with those iridescent Night King eyes. Those hologram winter is coming eyes, you know? Who's gonna wanna fuck me in my stretch shell cave pussy? Who's gonna want this geriatric uterus? These breastfed National Geographic titties?
She also does something I haven't heard before, where she uses repetitions in Spanish to grab an extra laugh.
Put your tongue in the booty hole now. Lengua en el culo ahorita.
It's really crafty. It allows her to chop and change between Spanish and English depending on the rhythm or the impact she's after. One joke about consuming milk in 3 ways results in her saying tres leches meal, which has a lovely assonant sharpness.
He had milk 3 ways. A straight tres leches meal.
I just thought it was really clever. I hadn't seen anyone do that before. My favourite joke is when she compares an old guy she slept with to King Triton from The Little Mermaid. Not only because this guy was a total snack, but Wong's commitment to play her childhood self as a scabby, venereal diseased nymphomaniac. It's the closest we get in this special to Wong hitting her previous gross out highs.
All right, I got another question for you. Where's your dick at? You got a dick under that tail?
I really love moments where comedians give the impression of leaving and returning to a bit as if they can't help themselves. It's fantastically alive delivery. There are a few problems, however. This is a nerd comedy quibble, but in this routine she delivers the same jokes twice. She talks about thinking this older guy might be dead after he ejaculates.
You know what really makes you feel alive? Because he might be dead. Your legacy is you're a murderer now. That's how you'll be remembered.
She goes on to make different observations, but when it's time to close the routine off, she returns to the initial idea.
And my heart sank to my stomach. I was like, oh my God, he's dead. The only sensation better than an orgasm is knowing you're not actually gonna go to jail.
I would call this bad repetition. Because she delivers these lines so far apart, they actually take away from each other. Wong should have kept the thrill of knowing the guy wasn't dead until the end of the routine, instead of spoiling the punchline in the opening. You end up with 2 kind of alright punchlines instead of 1 awesome one. It's actually something I've done multiple times. You can't think of a way to end a routine, so you reword the opening in the hopes no one will notice. Her delivery occasionally feels a bit static. This is supposed to feel like a realization, but the delivery is too deliberate.
I want to go to the Art Institute of Chicago. It is arguably the best museum in the US. It's where that famous scene from Ferris Bueller's Day Off was filmed. Oh my God, you don't know what Ferris Bueller's Day Off is.
I don't know, it just feels a little rehearsed. I think this comes back to the idea of restraint. Wong's delivery has always had a theatrical element, similar to John Mulaney. Crisp routines, deliberate rhythms. But in Single Lady, Wong wants to strike a more confessional tone. There are times where she kind of splits the difference. Her delivery doesn't have its usual staccato pulse, nor does it feel totally natural. There are also moments where Wong is clearly pausing for applause. In Hard Knock Wife describing the torturous process of breastfeeding, she eyeballs the audience enraged.
This is why women need maternity leave.
Applause, particularly clapter of this kind, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of it. You never want to cue the audience to whoop and cheer, but at least here the audience volunteers their support, and you can feel that emotion. In Single Lady, there's a twinge more Ellen DeGeneres.
Not for 1 second did I ever regret getting divorced. I mean it. Because
you can feel Wong forcing the audience's hand. This comes down to overall subject matter. In Hard Knock Wife, her openness discussing the horrors of pregnancy and early motherhood, topics many women feel ashamed of, was revolutionary. Single Lady doesn't have these universal themes, instead loosely focusing on the stigma around divorced women. It's more niche and less exclusively relevant to women. Louis C.K. was talking about the upside of divorce in 2010. It's not something an audience is going to leap into applause for, but there's Wong forcing them to.
But at least I was single and free to go on another adventure to fill it, right?
Sex, money, and power have been the three staples throughout her career, but since Don Wong, the elephant in the room is her fame. It's a fame she doesn't know how to address. Wong may not want to admit it, but she isn't the relatable comedian she once was, and her attempts to come across as ordinary lead to false notes. The most glaring is her repeatedly saying the reason she attracted so much attention following her divorce is because she's a quote-unquote kind six.
And I'm here to tell you that as long as you're a kind six, real men don't give a fuck, okay?
Ali Wong is an incredibly wealthy, attractive celebrity. On no planet is she a kind six. Saying her post-divorce experience awaits any middle-aged woman is a grasp. It even clashes with the opening line of the show, where she says the reason she received so much attention was because media reports of her divorce put out a bat signal to potential suitors. Make no mistake, this isn't self-deprecation, this is a comedian struggling to find common ground with the audience. It's a fate that awaits many comics who outgrow the relatable stage personas that made them famous. I sympathize with Wong, but moving forward she needs to embrace her fame and success in a more authentic way. If she doesn't, she'll end up with more navel-gazing finales like this, where she comes across out of touch.
But then just look at me as an alternate example of how it can be. I'm best friends with my ex-husband. And then if you, I really am. And if you can take away anything from what you've heard tonight, look how much fun I'm having.
Oh, look how good she has it, everyone. We could be like her, you know. For the second time in a row, she also fails to stick the landing. In Don Wong, after spending 45 minutes fantasizing about having sex with all the Avengers, Wong pulls a mad reversal, saying she is still very much sexually attracted to her husband. Knowing what we know now, this reads as her desperately trying to save face. But at least there was material here. In Single Lady, the final moments are kind of anticlimactic.
I did fall in love again. Some of you might know who the guy is. It just so happens to be the man who sent me all of those flowers in Europe. All right, I've been Ali Wong. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks.
What? There's been a bit of chat that Wong thinks she's more famous than she actually is. These final moments definitely read that way. It captures the strange push and pull throughout the special. Wong wants to appear ordinary one moment while also feeding us gossipy tidbits like she's a holier-than-thou celebrity. It's an indulgent, weird, muddled note to go out on. In the Wong saga, I would place it in the bottom half, maybe par with Baby Cobra. I would like Wong to go somewhere more personal and stop trying so hard to relate to her audience. Despite this, Wong is still an often inspired joke writer, and there are heaps of amusing stories and idiosyncratic observations. In the end, Single Lady feels like a one-night stand. You get along, you have a few drinks, but in the morning you try to close the door without waking them up.
It's the peasant who I saw leaving the city who disappeared into the crowd with Cusco on the back of his cart. He must have taken him back to his village, so if we find the village, we find him, and if we find him, we find Cusco. Oh yeah, it's all coming together.